So buckle up, get yourselves nice and comfortable as we go over the world that is Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. So, if you've been here for my previous 13-day videos, I usually at some point go over movies just like this, and since I've done a few role plays for you already, I figured this one would be, more of my original style. I had a role play idea for Beetlejuice, and it was so obnoxious that I was like, I cannot do it. So, let's kind of start about the plot and story of the actual movie that you all saw. So, the movie opens to our main characters, Adam and Barbara Maitland. They're in their quaint little country home in Winter River, which I did not know the name of the town until like right now, even though I rewatched the movie just for this. Funny enough, I've watched it twice now since this spooky season. I love Beetlejuice. Anyway, so Winter River, Connecticut. The Maitlands love their home so much that they're planning on spending their 2-week vacation home, just doing renovations, projects, kind of just a staycation, if you will. But that awesome staycation hits a snag pretty early on when they leave their home. They're doing so to go and grab some stuff from Adam's hardware store that he owns, and prior to them leaving, their realtor, or I don't know what she is, but she pops in to try to convince them to sell their home. Just pretty rude. She's like, this home is too big for you. It should be with somebody with a family. That's incredibly rude because, like, Barbara obviously reacts as if we're trying to stay out of our business, And they even make a comment about it when driving to the town that maybe they'll try again on this vacation, So, this chick sucks. Like, the real estate agent just desperately wants them out of their home. And can you imagine a real estate agent being like, let's sell this thing? I'd be like, go away. And they both say, go away. So anyway, they're off and they head to the town and return to sadly die. So they're on their way home and their car swerves dramatically as Barbara is driving, as a dog stands in front of their way while they're approaching this little bridge. So they smash into the side of the bridge and are hanging off of the side, and the dog is actually standing on a support for them. They turn around to try and communicate to it, but it walks off, and ultimately they plunge into the river. So, good news is they make it back home. Bad news is they're dead. They have no idea they're dead. They just are kind of like, I don't even remember how we got back home and stuff, but they're both wet and they walk in. They kind of go to dry off by the fire, right? So they don't really pick up on it at first. They put their hands there, they catch fire, blow it out, feel no pain. Pretty weird, right? Yeah. So more weird things progress, and Adam decides to step outside to retrace their steps, as they both do not have any memories. When he does so, they realize that it is a desert storm outside of nothingness, and there are these crazy sandworms that come to attack them. Barbara pulls him into the home and is like, you've been gone for hours, yet it only felt like a few moments. So she brings him in and says something else weird happened. city girl through and through. You can tell. Not only the way she talks about it, but just the way she is. So she wants to gut this house, or else she will go insane and take everyone with her. So, she brings her interior designer Otho with her. And they also have their daughter, Lydia. So, I believe Delia is Lydia's stepmother. And Lydia is this gothic queen. Digs the spooky vibes. She likes the home of the Maitlands. There's spiders. She's like, I could live here. It's good. And she like wears veils and stuff. She's so gothic. And she's a young teen. So, they're trying to settle in. Charles is like, leave the library. Like, don't gut that place, right? And they go through each area of the home and are kind of mapping out what they're gonna do. They try to go to the attic, which is kind of where they dwell, especially now that there are humans in their home and they're dead. So they run upstairs, lock the attic door, and slam it in their faces, which they don't find odd, which is interesting. And Delia even makes a joke, being like, Otho's like, I feel like there's something interesting behind this door. And Delia's like, yeah, ghosts of the people who lived here, and they want us out of their house. And she was so accurate. So anyways, even though they're dead, there's no way Adam and Barbara are gonna share their beautiful home. No way in hell. And so their game plan is to try and scare them away, It's a lot tougher than it seems, though. They just don't see them. They walk past them, they'll be like doing these crazy things, but they're not seeing them physically. It's very odd. But at the beginning, when they first had started to move in and all their furniture was coming in, Lydia, who was outside looking up, had kind of seen them and was like in awe and shock, but for a while does not again. So, as they try and scare them away, Adam and Barbara are so distraught that they cannot. And they come across this TV ad that pops up, and it is an ad for Beetlejuice, the ghost with the most, and the bio-exorcist. Maybe he can help get rid of the living in their home, right? These pests, right? Well, fortunately they don't right away. And Adam reads the handbook for the recently deceased, which arrived, and is one of the key indicators of why they were like, I think we're dead. And he figures out that he can draw a door to the afterlife. So he draws a door on the brick wall that then opens up glowing green, and Lydia is looking at them through the crack of the door, watching this green glow appear. So spooky. I'd move out. Anyway, so there they go and kind of walk into this like hustling, bustling, weird, spooky like office building where there's a waiting room, a receptionist, they pick numbers, and they wait to talk to their like caseworker, I think is what she is. So while they're there, they do not realize they've been in a waiting room for 3 months. Time just flies when you're dead, And they meet some interesting characters, like the receptionist, whom is Blue, and I think was a beauty pageant queen or something. And you get to see like how different everybody looks after they're dead. Like the Maitlands look so normal and boring, and other people look terrifying. And if you commit unaliving yourself, you are is then looking at her Polaroids, she sees that the little ghostly figures have no feet. And that's when she's kind of like, what do you look like under there? All spooky. And they pop off and she's like, you look so normal. They're like, yeah, I know. But she's not afraid of them. She kind of likes them and is a little jealous of them, you know? And she's odd, and they're like, why can you see us and your parents can't? Like, and the book of the recently deceased says they usually won't, which is like confusing. What does that mean, you know? So Lydia's like, I'm pretty strange and unusual, so maybe that's why I'm more susceptible to seeing you, you know? So she states that she's lonely. They show her up to the attic and they talk to her and they discuss their model town they have. And she's like, I wish I was dead. And they're like, no, you don't, girl. It's shit. So they continue to try and scare the deeds, and they're so disappointed in the failure, but they really like Lydia. But Barbara gets desperate, very desperate, and ends up calling Beetlejuice by his name 3 times. So when this happens, he kind of morphs them down and sucks them into their model town, where they then have to dig him up from a grave he made in the little cemetery there. He pops up and he's terrifying. He's also disgusting, crude, a little rude, super inappropriate. And they're like, we gotta get the frick away from this guy. He's crazy. But he did inspire them a little bit. So that night, at a dinner party that the Deeds were having, after they escaped Beetlejuice, Barbara has an idea. She and Adam spirit possess the Deeds, Delia, the guests, and make them all dance and sing to the song Deo. How scary. And it's a way better idea than the sheets, but like was almost too fun, you know? And they're kind of into it instead of being scared. They're like, this is sweet. So Lydia goes upstairs and says, they said you can wear whatever sheets you want. They want you to come downstairs and chat. And they're all talking about how amazing it is, and they want to like prove that dead is whatever and make this house like a theme park type thing. And so they're all super disappointed, and Lydia's like, they're not coming down. And they go upstairs, bust in there, and they see their little model town. They exit and say, let's not scare them away. Like if they want to be hidden, whatever. Like, we don't want to scare them away quite yet. So as they come down, Beetlejuice decides to help them, and he terrifies the living crap out of them. He breaks out the real horrors and turns into this massive snake that attacks them and terrifies the family. But Barbara runs down and stops, saying his name 3 times. This then scares Lydia, who runs away, and the family are all mortified as well. And they never wanted Lydia to be scared or hurt, you know? Like, she's a good kid, it's just her parents are a nightmare. Juno, the caseworker, arranges a distraction in the model town, making a little whorehouse. So when he's yelling at them, being like, you interrupted me when I was working, Juno distracts him. And Barbara's like, why did you make a whorehouse? And it's actually their caseworkers. She meets with them again, saying like, you really screwed up. Not only is Beetlejuice loose, but Otho, during all of the madness, grabbed the handbook for the recently deceased. Just a big deal. Like, come on, guys, rookie. But they're also not being given any support, so whatever. because before they left, Juno was like, wait, like, show me what you're gonna do. I don't trust you, you know? And so they come in, scare the crap out of Lydia, but it does stop her from calling Beetlejuice's name, because she was talking to him about how she wanted in to the afterlife, and he was like, I can help you, because he's a monster. Anyway, so they stop her before she can make that mistake. And later that night, Charles was attempting to interest his old business partner in buying land in Winter River. Just think of all the ghostly attractions they could sell, you know. So they decide to demand to see some ghosts before he actually does this sale, and he does come down. Now Lydia cannot produce them, and she will not, but Otho can. He has the book, right? So Otho uses some incantations from the handbook for a seance type thing. It's actually an exorcism that he's performing. So it appears like he brings them to life, laying out their wedding clothes on the table, and the ghosts start to disappear and arise onto this table. But they're dying. They look young and in the moment like they're alive, but they slowly start to age, and you can see lines filling all over their face, and they cannot speak either. So Lydia is desperate to help them as they're rotting in front of everybody. She rushes over to the model town and asks for Beetlejuice's help. He only says he will if Lydia marries him. Gross. Some freaking demon guy. So she agrees, and he pops out, and you gotta admit, does some of his best work. Like, he messes with the deeds. He starts cracking jokes and terrorizing everybody. Like, Beetlejuice is the most ridiculous character ever. And he knocks them down out of the exorcism and saves Adam and Barbara. But to get them out of the way, he transports them outside into Sandworm City. Or I think he only does that for Barbara, right? Yes, and then he puts like a metal thing on Adam's mouth because Adam is trying to stop him from marrying a child, and makes it so that they can't say his name. He also like zips Barbara's mouth closed, like all these things. Just as Beetlejuice and Lydia are getting married and about to finally say I do, Barbara, who is outside, busts through the roof, riding on a sandworm that ultimately eats Beetlejuice. Thank goodness. So after all this happens, the Maitlands and the Deeds kind of make like a little truce, and they decide to just coexist peacefully, which is lovely. And the Deeds even, you know, restore the house to its old charms and get rid of all the spooky, weird stuff that they had in there. And Lydia is actually really happy. She's thriving. She does like really well now. And it looks like the Maitlands are doing good too. Like even, you know, Delia is doing art, and, you know, everything looks and appears to be well. Adam and Barbara help Lydia with her homework, and it's all cute and dandy. And as the movie draws to a close, we see Beetlejuice in the caseworker waiting room again, and he has a number that's like 9 million, but then steals the guys beside him who's at 4, and they're only at 3. And the guy is actually like a shrinker. He's like I'm not sure what it is. Like tribal. Sprinkles some dust onto Beetlejuice's head and makes his head like so tiny. But of course Beetlejuice can't be, you know, ever turned like not into himself. He's like, this is probably a good look for me. Like and that's kind of the end. You see the Maitland celebrating with Lydia, dancing like in her float and stuff. And that's what the movie starts Like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. Thankfully, they were like, no, we're just going with Beetlejuice. Shut up. So, Beetlejuice was named for Betelgeuse, which is a star constellation in Orion, which is likely why there's a lot of confusion around the spelling of the name. So, originally, Beetlejuice was gonna be messed up. He was gonna murder people, fly, and like rape people, which is messed up. Like, no. Apparently, screenwriter Michael McDowell's original script was a straight up horror film, on par with like The Exorcist, before being rewritten by screenwriters Larry Wilson and Warren Scarron. Originally, the storyline showed he was like a winged demon whose human form was that of a small Middle Eastern man, and his plan for the deeds was more about like mischief, marriage, murder. Yeah. And the car crash originally was much more gruesome, which I couldn't see Burton directing, you know. Sammy Davis Jr. was Burton's original first choice for Beetlejuice. It's pretty wild. But he wanted him to play him, and at the time he was 63 years old. But thankfully that didn't go through because Michael Keaton just crushes it, you know. So, Keaton actually inspired Burton, the crew, and Beetlejuice's character. So Michael Keaton said that his character was described to him as having lived in every time period, but also not. So Keaton used this to create the character that features a crazy hairdo, mold, makeup, which you can't tell, but I tried to do, large teeth. And Keaton told Rolling Stones that once they figured out his look, his approach to the character just came together really quickly. He wanted his hair to stand up like as if a wire had hit him, you know. And once he started getting that, he'd actually look at himself and laugh and think, this is a good sign, it's kind of funny, you know. And then got the attitude, which kind of just rolled with it, which Beetlejuice's attitude is so bizarre, but a thing. So, when Keaton first showed up to set dressed up, I guess everyone was like calling him Juice, and it was Juice, Juice, Juice. And this inspired him to do a lot of improvisation to make the character more goofy, which is good because he was not actually planned to be goofy, and Beetlejuice is so goofy. So, Beetlejuice is 17 and a half minutes of rage acting. So Keaton only spent 2 weeks shooting Beetlejuice and only appears in 17 and a half minutes of the 92-minute film. Despite not spending much time shooting, he completely threw himself into the role, saying, you know, at some point you just show up on set and just go effing nuts. It was like rage acting. You act for 12 or 14 hours. You go home tired and exhausting. It was like I was at a rave, you know? Which I could see, like, his character was not normal. It was, like, intense, you know? So Lydia Deeds almost had a little sister. In earlier versions of the script, Lydia was not an only child, and she had a straight-laced sister named Kathy to serve as contrast to Lydia's very gothic vibes. It is read in some of the early drafts that, and there was even a scene where, while in New York, she took her sister to a rock concert and they got splashed with blood. It would have made the movies, though, weird. I'm glad they did not do that. So, Tim Burton did not want to use much post-production effects on Beetlejuice. So if there's actually scenes where effects needed to happen, the director insisted that the crew figure out how to do it live. Even the one where, like, they put the hand through the head and the that's the right word, but Burton's team was then encouraged to do something new, so they'd kind of made it a bit more upbeat. So he was like waiting in a lineup to meet with a caseworker who would then, you know, give him his come up and somehow. But yeah, the Maitlands were originally going to move into the model of their house and renovate it to look like their full-scale version did before the family arrived. That would have been cute, actually. Lydia was supposed to die in a horrible fire. Yeah. And we haven't been able to find if she sets fire to herself, but she did so to intend to stay with the Maitlands forever, which would have been horrific. And Charles and Delia, due to the tragic loss of their daughter, were supposed to move back to New York. What a messed up version of the movie that would have been. I'm glad that didn't happen. Many actresses turned down the role of Lydia. Thankfully, I couldn't imagine it being anybody else. Apparently, Sarah Jessica Parker was almost Lydia. Brooke Shields, Molly Ringwald, Jennifer Connelly. I can't even imagine. But Winona Ryder won the part once Burton saw her performance in the teen drama Lucas, whatever that is. So, the ghost shrimp actually hurt a few people. Apparently, the prosthetics were logistically difficult. It's safe to say, I think I made a contribution to the film. There was a scene at the table, this is Dick Cavett, and he helped them while shooting the attacking shrimp. Suggested that they shoot it in reverse because originally all the actors underneath with hands would go to attack the faces, but like poke people's eyes and like hurt them because they can't see what they're grabbing, which I kind of want to go back and see now because I didn't realize that. That's kind of cool, and that makes so much sense. Yeah, so that is a bit of what it was gonna be, a little bit too of like behind the scenes stuff, but also there is now apparently a new Beetlejuice coming out. Have you guys heard about that? I'd seen a weird trailer in 2019, but apparently, I think it might be a different one, but apparently there's going to be a new one in 2024, so next year. I am so excited about this. I freaking love Tim Burton and his movies, and like, it would just be incredible to see. I read somewhere that it was gonna have like Johnny Depp and Jenna Ortega and Winona Ryder. Like, I would love this movie, so let's hope it comes out, because 2019 had one, right? And I don't think it was the same one. I don't know. But anyways, so this was a little break from some of the other videos I was just making. I like to always have a little synopsis for you guys, and yeah, that is the story of Beetlejuice. 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 I hope that you all enjoyed today's video, and I hope you're enjoying the 13 days till Halloween countdown. There's a lot more to come, and as I said, I do each kind of genre